most of the places that we work in, a car cannot get to it. So we use more motorbikes. The areas that we get to, it's a need. And so when somebody can afford to pay $10 a month or $15 a month for electricity for a solar system, their children can have light at night to study. They can have a small business. Because a lot of people in the communities don't have electricity, cannot afford a television, you might have one person in that community get a solar television, and that is the entertainment for the entire village.
Welcome to the Ageus podcast. Buckle up. This episode is brought to you by Cards Biz, a business card too good to give away.
So this is cards. This is what we make in Cards Biz. This is the black Amex of business card, made out of metal, glass polymer, engraved in real gold or silver. And basically you don't give this away. You basically tap somebody's phone and the information is shared. So you make the best impression in every meeting.
This episode is brought to you by Better Weight for Life, transformational weight loss aid, led by U.S. board-certified physicians, providing access to GLP-1 medications like Wegovy and Zepbound that are proven to help you lose weight and keep it off.
Hello, Abigail.
Hi.
So, Abigail, today we're going to talk about solar. About solar specific in Liberia and West Africa. And I don't think a lot of people know, but besides being a financial genius and an entrepreneur, you actually know your stuff in the solar world. Isn't that right?
Especially when it comes to the, financial structure of operating a solar company.
So you've been operating a solar company for how long?
Going to be six
How long?
6 years.
Wow. And so solar, Liberia Solar, that's the name, right?
LIB Solar, but the LIB stands for Liberia.
So how did that happen?
The solar company is owned by my partner, who's on the technical side of the business. It started a number of years ago. Really deciding to bring, where Liberia is an underdeveloped country, so we have challenges with regards to electricity, specifically in the rural areas. So these areas are really inaccessible. We have challenges for electricity through the country. However, the rural areas are particularly acute because you don't have roads to get there. So even if you have a small generator to get fuel, the price is about twice what it is in the city. So just saying that those places where many of which vehicles cannot get to, so you're using basically motorbikes or a boat or a canoe to get to. My partner had actually done some non-governmental work through Liberia, and so he saw the need, how these areas really, the likelihood of them getting any sort of electricity in the medium term was pretty much non-existent. So we started our business basically to provide solar small home systems, so people within the rural area, and then try it along with a financial program that will take into consideration that the earning potential in those areas are quite low. So meeting those needs while at the same time being able to consider the environment that we're working in.
So I heard basically the community support. I heard trouble. I heard anything about logistical problems. I heard about the financial considerations both on the short and long term. So this definitely sounds a lot more complex than say than a solar company I'm familiar from the West in Europe. Let's say in where was it? It's like a large facilities deployed in large locations. So what is the picture I should have in my head when talk about the solar deployment for you guys?
Think about it as this is it's a thriving business, right? But it also it's like meeting a lot of social really. So that was also a really important part of doing this work. It's like it wasn't just okay, we are going to sell solar right? It was going to be like, we are going to engage the community while we're getting income from the community by providing solar services to them. Well, we also created a structure to also provide income within the community for people who serve as agents in the community. So there's so many different components to this. There's the financial part, there's the social economic part of it. So for us, it was, for example, you can get a small home system, for example, that has 3 lights, a battery. That means that they can charge their mobile phones. They can charge other smaller appliances. They can have lights. That means children can have light to study at night. That means that if you have a small business where you sell maybe a few knickknacks in the community, you will have light to do that in the evenings. It also brings like a whole vibrant part to life, having the solar in many areas. And so on the financial side, instead of saying that this system costs $120 or $100 to someone who likely will have not been able to save that amount, you can say to them, you can pay this amount every month for the system, and after a certain amount of time, you have different plans depending on your earning potential. If you pay every month after a certain month, you will be able to own the system. And as I stated, it is a financial network that was created because many of the areas are very rural. So how do you get to those areas to collect the funds? If somebody is paying $5, $8, $10, think about the logistical cost of collecting all of that. So what I've been able to really work on creating it is that you involve people within the community to serve as collectors. And then you also utilize the mobile money system. So we find different means. There's not one singular way that works for everywhere. It's basically finding the method for specific areas that work.
So okay, so fine. I think you made it clear that this is not a charity, and on one hand, you're trying to balance between making it a business, solving the logistic issues, and actually adding value to the community. Can you give us that's a very concrete example for how do you choose a region, how do you enter a region, how do you deploy the service, how do you service the service, how do you collect money, and so on. Can you walk us through an example from beginning to end?
Okay, so when we first started, like the first 2 years, for example, was a different process than now. So initially, as we're new, Liberia has 15 counties. So you have a team that will go in advance to the county, engage the head. So that's the chief, the commissioner, whoever is the head within a town or a group of villages. Then we started off noting that we wanted areas to have at least 100 potential or 50 potential customers. Engage the leadership in the area, explain to them the problem, show them the sample, show them how it works, and say to them, you should come back and sign someone for that one to go about to find one who will be the liaison.
Okay. Right.
Finding someone who will be the community liaison. So the initial process is you engage that person. They go and collect names with contact information of potential customers. Then, after they've communicated that with us, we sent over the items. The way the system is set up is that each system is programmed based on, if you take a system that you're going to do a payment for 24 months, for example, or 12 months, the system is said that every month you have to make that payment, and then you get a series of numbers that are used to punish the kind of like a prepay system. Right. So a lot of telephone companies, for example, in this part in Liberia or other countries in the region use it. So you a certain amount of minutes or something, and you get a number. So these collectors go around When someone pays them, they go into the system, put in that this account number has paid the required amount, and the system will generate a number that is then provided to them. The collector then has two means transmitting the funds. It can either be transmitted by direct money through going to a bank and depositing it. So for those who are in areas with big towns that have bank branches, they go to it. Others use mobile money. So much of ours actually is mobile money because we get mobilizers out of the field. They will sensitize the people in the area. It will also discuss the different products we have available, the costs, and the different plans. We can have a certain amount of installation to be done. We send over the products with technicians to install the systems. And at which point, a collector that is from that community. So most of the collectors are from the community. So they can speak the local language and they can sometimes have more of an have relationships in the community to ensure that people are paying. So we hire people from that community to do it. Now it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes it actually reverses. So because they're so familiar with the people, then they try not to pay also. At which point we have to send backup to try to get the funds. Yeah, so that's kind of the outline. We get the mobilizers and we establish their customers. We send in the goods. The systems can register a collector is then found within that area and assigned to do the collections. And then we can monitor it electronically to see the collections that are being sent.
And can you ever, so what kind of products are we talking about? Because you said you guys have different products, and let's start with a discussion with entering a new area.
We have just like light bulbs, like solar systems that provide light,
Mhm.
the radio, flashlight, a battery pack for charging. Then we move up to a system that had a fan, especially during the hot season. We have a system that has a television, and we also have a system that has a refrigerator, a solar refrigerator.
So you supply the TV and the refrigerator as part of it, or is it just a system that supports those devices?
The actual TV and the actual refrigerator that have
Oh,
it.
so you're almost an electronics store on top of everything.
Yes, we come from that electronic store, solar, everything wrapped into one.
So why? Because let's say, why not just be the solar energy part and leave the electrical devices aside?
They're all made together, right? So if you,
It's a
yes,
special unit. It's a special unit.
yeah. So this is funding for kind of people who don't have as much funds. It's a
Mhm.
lot of people in the city will get a solar system with a uh inverter system, right? But this, you don't need that, right? So you have a solar system and it's inbuilt. It brings the cost down significantly.
And what would you say? I mean, again, this is very impressive. Really, it sounds like you're targeting a lot of operational elements more than your. It's definitely your let's say company just the solar. But like from all this many aspects, what would you say is the most challenging?
The financial part.
Why?
Because you're dealing with having to collect the funds is challenging because people just don't have a lot of money. So you have to be creative with it. You have to be patient. You have in countries like Liberia where it's a poor country, people don't have a lot. Convincing them that spending money on electricity is beneficial is customers should also are at the bottom of the economic ladder. It is quite challenging. Also ensuring that the people who, because we're very much a cash economy, convincing and ensuring that the collectors submit the funds they've collected and all of that. That is really a challenging part of the business. The most challenging part, in my opinion.
So is it actually modeling the finance, or is it the operation of the finance? Which part is that about?
Repeat that.
Is it I mean, I'm assuming it's both, so that it's both. How do you model the uncertainty? I mean, how do you put that on a spreadsheet and model that? How do you connect the modeling to the operations of managing the collectors and the purchase? Like, how do you balance that?
See, the skill comes in just because you have to do it. Like that is what your life, your every day is about, right? Because at the same time, I have to make sure that we also have debt that we have to service, right?
Mhm.
We have taxes to pay, so we have employees to pay. So it's you model it by, for one, experience, understanding your environment, using the data. I mean, we are very much also a data-driven company, constant, and I think a lot of it is being on top of it, trying your best not to catch up, but to try to be, to spot the trends before they spot you. Like, or it's
So
the
what's a
time,
trend?
like,
What's a trend?
like
When
for
you say trend, what do you
example,
mean?
because we depend on technology so much, there have been times where there's glitches where the collectors find a way of a lapse of not reporting some of the funds that they collect. So you have to watch the collection of the funds versus, okay, these amounts of contracts are coming up this time of the month. They should be collecting this month. It's something happened. Is it something that they found a way to work the way around it? Where at one point we realized our systems was generating the numbers that they need, the tokens, and giving to them so they could collect, because they have the batch. So you're using technology, you're learning from it. But if you just depend on with technology and not be on top of it and not understand, it's like on a daily basis, because the collectors are sending the funds by mobile money or the bank statement, as we build a system to stay on top of watching what is happening, so spot where we need to intervene.
So what do you say? I mean, again, like we keep coming back to the story that you have to balance risk, you have to deal with uncertainty, you have to deal with technology, with people, and things like that. So what have you learned? What's the biggest lessons you learned about managing uncertainty?
And you have to really, you can't freak out. That's the first part.
Mhm.
So for
Can't
me,
freak out. Do
you
not freak out.
do not freak out.
Number one.
Number one, because I mean, at this point, it has happened. There's no going back. It has happened. You cannot go back and undo it. So my first instinct is to say, okay, what happened? And I do not take a whole day. I do not take an hour. I do not take a lot of time. I give it just enough time to get the details of what happened. There's lots of non-essential details, and a lot of times, if you're talking to your staff, they will tend to explain or over-explain and get that essential detail and act fast. Because especially with finance, it's a matter of not acting for an hour. It's a matter of not acting for a day. It's very expensive if you don't act right away. So my thing
Yes.
is, once you find out, get a cool head. How can I mitigate it immediately? I did it, and then I can go in to start to really get exactly what it is. So some sort of mitigation has to be done, especially from which is my primary role in the business, which is the financial aspect. I do a lot of operations, but the primary responsibility of the financial aspect of the business is on me. So the first thing I do is level head, even if I'm like the top is do my best. You come, let's see what happened, and mitigate it as soon as you can, so that you do not accumulate more, do not have more losses or lose more customers or whatever the effect is. Try to um, do that as quick as you can with a cool head.
So how do you get a cool head? Somebody might be listening to you and say,
The
you know,
this environment is a very, very challenging environment. It's so challenging. I have stories for days. However, you literally have to tell yourself. I think actually, for me, what it has me is you can't focus on the problem. Because if you focus on the problem, you get upset and you're just. So the key is just really not to focus on the problem. Acknowledging the problem is key. But once that problem is acknowledged, you have to keep moving.
so tell us about the challenge event that you feel very proud of. I mean, maybe it was very painful at the time, but you're very proud that you managed to overcome.
Every day there's one. Every day there's one. Just there was a point where we were getting a lot of just building the system that we have right now for collection.
Right.
So, monitoring it, putting a system in place where several times a day I can just know, what's going on financially in the company, where we are with our collections. Collecting more relevant data has been be proud of, like collecting relevant data. I have a budget that I don't need to meet anyone. As I said, you have to finance, you have all these other obligations. There was a period for us where we had a managing director who was doing a lot of the operations, and there are a few months where the month ends, and as the month's about to end, and realize why are we not having payroll ready? And then we're not monitoring our cash flow properly. How things getting a handle on that and really seeing that the business can thrive, because in this business, so it is so much. But I feel like for me, sometimes people that a business need ration. Sometimes if a business in challenge, is with there were not as many solar businesses. Now there are tons of them. And so everyone's raising money. There are lots of other organizations outside governmental and non-governmental or provided grants and all of that. And I just like, I wouldn't want to borrow a company or buy into a company that was not efficient. So getting the company to be efficient, inventory, having a strong cash flow policy, collection, and track record, that I'm very proud of, that our financial statements are strong, that I can have the option of not having to go to, there was a point last year where there was we had the opportunity to get about $2 million, and we didn't take it because we didn't need it. That it would have been nice to get it. We could pay ourselves, we could buy more equipment, but we understood that. Do I buy more equipment and just sit down? What happens when I turn that into service? Do I take the money and pay myself now when all my projections indicate that is not the best thing to do? Probably be able to say, at this point, that is not the right decision.
And what about the impact you have in a community or a specific installation? What do can you share an installation or a number of the places you can maybe say, I change life, we change life. I'm very proud of that.
Change lives every day. There are literally areas that we operate in. So part of our whole operations, and one of the reasons that it's complicated, is that most of the places that we work in, a car cannot get to it. So we use more motorbikes, right? So the areas that we get to are just, it's a need. And so when somebody can afford to pay $10 a month or $15 a month for electricity, for a solar system, their children can have light at night to study, and they can have a small business. We are instrumental in a lot of small businesses because because a lot of people in the communities don't have electricity, can't afford a television, you might have one person in that community get a solar television, and that is the entertainment for the entire village because they could they'll watch their soccer, they'll watch movies, and that is the central point for entire community. It's like an ongoing process. That
As I'm listening to you, what's running in my head is that finance done well can change people's lives.
it is not about throwing money at things, right? So there are a lot of different. We're in startup era, right? There's so many startups. But one thing I would say that you have to have not just a startup that's meeting, you know, but the startup should be able to live beyond getting funding.
Yeah. Then that you're going to a business. Not only diapers, but adolescents.
Because after you can only receive funding for a year, what does that mean for that business? Is it a business? Is it to sell it off to a bigger entity that's gonna? And for most in this part of the world, there's not that kind of vibrant, like startups being sold. If LIB Solar properly, people who are going to buy it, they're there, but there are not that many. So you have to. So it's at that point that I know that I have to make it as a vibrant and strong business as possible.
So I heard you mention that correct me if I heard correctly, that they said like improving people's life, people build businesses based on your business. So do you give us examples?
Or I talk a little bit about using the televisions as entertainment centers in the communities. Also, we have the refrigerators. So people have small stores, mini marts and that is their source of having cool drinks and food that they sell. Actually, we have so many. The refrigerator is actually more of a business product dedicated the ability for people to afford it for their homes. I don't know off the top of my head, the percentage of the consumption for the refrigerators are primary businesses.
Already businesses.
Yeah, because it's an area where people do not have electricity. So if you want to sell anything that needs to be cooled, a lot of money.
What are things that are being sold cold? Is it like Coca-Cola or is it milk? Or is it, what are we talking about?
It's
Medicine.
It's drinks, soft drinks. So that could be like a restaurant, a bar, a shop that sells that. It's also food, right? So it's you sell whether you sell chicken or mostly things, and you buy it frozen and you have to store it before you sell it. There is very few using it. Few kind of like rural, small mini marts, small little stores.
And so, what is the future? Like, what is the future like? What does it look like?
Yeah, we are in Liberia has 15 counties, like 15 federal subdivisions. We are in all 15 counties. Association it's got established in those counties. We have about 30,000 plus, I think between 31 to 32,000 customers. And once is that people upgrade. So just the light and the radio and the fan. And the flashlight. And then you get the fan. So that's because we know that there's not the likelihood of the national grid getting to most of the areas that we're in are highly unlikely within the next 5-10 years. So really it's about LIB Solar kind of continue to penetrate into those areas to service and get as many people as possible to have access to solar electricity.
Do you think you'll operate outside of Liberia?
That should just focus on Liberia because we understand the terrain to spread and then not be able to properly I really don't believe in expanding just so you can say expand. We have not nowhere near met our capacity here. So going to another country to go that already has a solar provider there to jump into that market and fight that. It's not, we are currently the largest provider in Liberia. So I rather just solidify our position and then trying to jump.
So I mean, look, out of curiosity, I mean, there's another big note that you're very well educated. You're very well educated in the world of finance, up to a master's degree. What a school does not teach when you actually go and implement this is like you implement your finance knowledge, what was an operator as an entrepreneur under those very, I would say, challenging and uncertain circumstances. What's that gap between what we learn in school?
Come on, you still listening down here. That's why that's there. Because first of all, every environment is so different. Like I can
Yeah.
work in like for example, it's literally and for me, what has been my one of my strengths I believe has been the agility because just I've been in so many different lived and worked in different environments and the ability to be able to move within different environments I feel is one of my strengths. You know, you can adapt to different, you can adapt. I can learn one thing in this area. I think learning the skill of adaptability enables you to learn something in one environment and see somewhere else. And I can take the tools, same thing that happened, but use it in the other place. But it's just learning that you have to
Like
adapt.
what? Like what? Give examples. Like what?
So I started my career working in public accounting in the US. It's a challenging environment in many ways. Very challenging. You have to work very long hours, but you are kind of dealing with you sit at a desk for a majority of the time. Sometimes of course you do out when you sit at a desk, your head is down and you might just be trying to build a model, right? So you have to be persistent, hit, you burn it. Because actually, I thought about it and I realized how much I learned during my first years doing that. Because I worked in a group where we would do projects in different industries, right? So you were kind of forced to work on something in the pharmaceutical industry, learn to a certain extent how the industry functions, prepare some tax planning related issues with regards to that. And the next day you'll be doing it for a bank. And so that adaptability, again, as someone who lived in about 4 or 5 countries before I went to college, that you learn to adapt, right? So I learned this kind of like you stick to it, you find a way to get through whatever the challenges that you have at this moment. And then I moved to Liberia, where every day, like you get up every day and you're like, what's gonna happen? What's the real challenge of the day? So while you have, like all these consistencies about life
Yeah.
and work, but I was also working on different and still have to switch how you think. I'm working for a bank now. This is our operates. I'm working for a pharmaceutical or biotech company. This is how it operates. So you start to think about, I moved to this environment where every day there's another challenge. I am not an HR person. I don't know anything about HR. However, I have a company and I'll have all these issues with regards to what do I do? I know that I look for the resources. I hire proper HR person, but I also adapting of learning the basics of what is required so that I can ask the right questions to solve this problem that is related to my company. Addressing your question is just adaptability. It's what I've learned. Yeah, it's what I've learned moving, you know. I mean, anything, getting a proper foundation is essential. So getting a good education will always be useful. A solid education in accounting, it's very different how you will work for, I worked as an example when I was an intern, and I sat there and reconciled for a Fortune 100 company, reconciling their financials, doing the audit process. But I'm doing like small and medium-sized companies here now, right? So they're different, but I learned the foundation of what a financial statement is. Me, what I should look for, and that foundation is what takes me, whether I'm working with a Fortune 500 company or a small business.
If you had to take that, let's say somebody that's an aspiring, comes from natural background and is thinking of being an entrepreneur or or doing something in entrepreneur, besides don't do it, what would be your biggest recommendation?
Biggest recommendation is just anything you do, whatever it is, just get it, doing it. And you decide that it is not something that inspires you or that you can find the energy to put in, talk one day and say, oh, I'm going. But start to think through the process of how you can gracefully move up there. Do it to the best of your ability. That's the only thing, because I think if you do something to the best of your ability and you leave, you know that you've given it your all. Because I think like you have to realize that sometimes people want permanence, right? They want something to be permanent, they want it. But what I've learned so far is that it's easy to say live in the moment, but it's something that I personally try to remind myself of, to not get caught up in what happened in the back of what you assume is happening. You can look forward to the adventures of the future. You can appreciate or learn from what happened before, but you really shouldn't hold on to it. It's mixed, bad, good, challenging, not challenging. When you look back at it, you should just know that you were in the moment where you could appreciate it for what it is. It's done, but I think reminding yourself of it helps. Of it helps. That can be really, really hard, where you have to remind yourself. It's literally that day will pass. Like you can't stop time.
I like writing notes to myself sometimes of like to remind me those kind of things. So like for example, one of my favorite sayings that I remind myself is, wherever you go, there you are. Meaning it's like you bring yourself, you bring yourself to any situation, right? You're in a situation, and I have this like written down and I look at it. Another thing is like, so let me ask you, so what is your kind of one sentence or two sentences that you wish everybody you work with had that kind of tattooed on their hand or as a screensaver on the phone that they would see it every day?
But you said it, like literally just give it as much as you can. Yeah. And your all might look like very little to someone, or give your all. And the other thing that I've realized is so essential is communicate based. Like not and I'm saying this as someone who's working on that, because I've seen what not communicating does. Like you have to, like, I feel better when my staff, like people I work with, over communicate with me until it irritates me. And then I snap out of it. And I snap out of it and be like, yeah, it's probably better that they over communicate than not tell me. Like, even if it's just like a passing email, being aware that something's happening, communication, it's really key. But definitely giving it your all. Like, my pet peeve, it's really half-assing stuff. Like, that's my pet peeve. But that's me. Like it's just, I think that's
No, 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 Abigail, you're preaching to the choir. You're
Yeah.
preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
I personally prefer to get to the end of the day knowing that I gave it my all and be frustrated, okay? Be frustrated that I might not have succeeded, but I know that for that specific day, everything I could have done communication, work, fathers, that I give always another day. But today, I gave it its all.
And then if I didn't give something at all, it literally tortures me. Like I feel like a tortured soul when I do that. Like I feel like it just keeps. It's like it just keeps coming back. All the things right.
Isn't there a circle in hell for lazy people? Do I remember
I mean,
Dante's Inferno correctly? I'm not sure. Something like that.
it's not like I don't want to say laziness because I've also realized about
No,
people.
I'm kidding. It was a
Yeah.
joke. It was a joke. Yes.
It's not particularly about laziness, but I just like don't on purpose like wing it. And it's like this,
So how about never half-ass it? Never half-ass it. Never half-ass it. Wonderful. Abigail, thank you very much for sharing this. I think even though we've known each other for a long time now, it's like I've learned today things I didn't know. So
We always learn things. We always learn things when we talk.
It's a wrap. This Abigail's podcast episode ends here, but you don't. Now, is it crazy to think that you know somebody who'd love this episode? Share it with them, and they'll love you for it.